Sai Ram, I welcome you all to this webinar session, which is in a way special for a couple of reasons. One, we have with us again Brother Sai Giridhar, who spoke to us a couple of months back on the first webinar and is back now due to popular demand. The other reason is that under the current circumstances, when we all are feeling a bit distressed by the pandemic, we need Swami's message of tolerance, unity, and purity to help us manage and recover. The theme, as you would have noticed, is aptly titled Why Fear When I Am Here? Bhagwan's Assurance in These Troubled Times. Brother Sai Giridhar, for those who are joining the webinar for the first time, is an alumnus of the Sri Sathya Sai Higher Secondary School and the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, where he completed his bachelor's and master's in chemistry and then went on to complete his PhD in clinical biochemistry. He is currently a resident fellow at the Sri Sathya Sai Center for Human Values in Prasanthi All of us remember him as an articulate and a forceful speaker. We have requested him to speak on the theme of the World Conference, but keeping in context the current situation, and therefore the theme, Why Fear When I'm Here?
Sarvarupadharam Shantam Sarvanamadharam Shivam Satchitananda Advaitam Satchitananda Advaitam Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Offering our most loving and humble salutations at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai, who has verily assumed all the forms in the entire cosmos. Every form goes with a name, and hence Swami declared that all names are his, and hence all names are auspicious. While he has assumed the multitude of everything in the universe, yet he is not many but only one. One Satchitananda without second. This is an introduction that Bhagwan gave to himself when Kasturi Garu had asked him, Swami, who are you? He said, Sarva Rupa Dharam Shantam. I have assumed all the forms in the entire cosmos. Sarva Nama Dharam Shivam. All names are mine and hence auspicious. Satchitananda Advaitam. I am one and one alone without a second. I am Sat, presence, Chit, the awareness of the presence, and Ananda, the very bliss that is the nature of that presence. That is Swami, and he is ever present with each and every one of us as our own true self all the time. To that Swami who is now here in the form of audience to this seminar, a very, very loving Sairam and pranams to all of you. The topic for today is why fear when I am here. This is a very powerful and a very beautiful topic. It is very dear to a child who, while running on the street, may fall down and hurt himself or herself and is worried what would happen to that child. Even to that child, Bhagwan says, why fear when I am here? To a youth who is aspiring to reach great heights in his or her profession and is worried about how the tides of life is going to take them forward, Bhagwan tells them, why fear when I am here? For a person settled in life, settled in a family life, or in their own path of their choice, and wondering if their sadhana is progressing or not, whether the steps that they have taken until now and the plan they have for the future is going to hold forth for them for a glorious life ahead, Bhagwan says, why fear when I am here? For people who have strived all their life and continue to be a wonderful example through their life to the youngsters, when the elders wonder how the future generations are going to cope up and live in union with nature, Bhagwan says, why fear when I am here? This sentence, why fear when I am here, is a blessing given by Bhagwan, who is an avatar who has never ever walked in such glory ever before on earth. This declaration is not being made by me, but one great yogi in India, many of you might be familiar with, Paramahamsa Yogananda, had asked another great saint, a lady saint from the city of Kolkata, or rather the state of West Bengal in India, Mata Anandamayima. This yogi par excellence, Paramahansa Yogananda, asked this divine incarnation of love, Anandamayima, who is Satya Sai Baba? In a spontaneous reply to this question, this saint Anandamayima said, my dear child, what I am going to tell you now, I shall not repeat. So listen carefully. Sri Satya Sai Baba is the Paripurna Avatar, Paripurna Parabrahman, the Supreme Godhead that is beyond the source of the creation itself, now come in a human form. Supreme love has come in a human form in such a way that he has never walked on this earth before and will not do so ever again for 5,000 years or more. These were the words of the Lady Saint. From such an avatar, we have this assurance, a personal assurance to each one of us. Why fear when I am here? We are living a life amidst very challenging times. We have seen many natural calamities. We have also seen something that is unbelievably difficult for humanity to take at the moment. We are all going through it. The situation created by the coronavirus. But when Bhagwan's karuna or compassionate grace is on us, what corona can do? In fact, once when, we recently had the celebration of the festival of Ugadi, of course, in a very humble way, very recently, Ugadi literally means the beckoning of a new era or new year. So this Ugadi celebration was very dear to Swami, and often there would be what is known as Panchanga Shravanam. That is, there would be an astrologer par excellence, an expert in the field, who would be invited to Prasanthi Nilayam in Swami's presence, and they would spell out the astrological predictions for the various rashis, or what you call as horoscope signs that we have for the coming year. And on one such occasion, when they went sequentially starting from Aries all the way up to Pisces, and the scholar was elucidating how the year is going to be for them according to the Indian astrological system. After the complete description was over, Bhagwan took the mic to give his divine discourse, and Swami said, when the anugraha of Sai is there on all of you, what can grahas do to you? I'll translate these words. When the grace of abundant grace of Sai is there on you, anugraha is grace, what can graha do to you? Graha means the planetary positions. This is symbolic to say that whatever events happen in our life, however they happen, for whatever reasons they happen, there is a power that is with us, with each and every one of us, that can overrule the destiny that awaits us. And that power is the grace of Sai, grace of God. Anyone who earns the grace of God is automatically protected from it. Often this question comes, when God is the creator of this entire universe, why is there so many natural calamities? What is the cause of these natural calamities? Bhagwan once described this in beautiful detail. This was way back in the year 2001, when there was a natural calamity of earthquake, a very shattering event in India, in the state of Gujarat. Bhagwan in fact sent 50 truckloads of relief material at that time. Of course, we all know for this current situation, Corona, the best service that we can do is stay home and not do anything. But at that time, because the situation was of that of earthquake, Bhagwan had sent 50 truckloads of relief material with hundreds of army warriors of love, the Sevadal, and they all went and served there. And when this wonderful act of service was happening, there was beautiful conversation that happened between Bhagwan and his students. We were all seated in the Sai Kulwant hall, and Swami began to describe. There are two parts to this conversation we had with Swami, which I would love to share here. The first part is about why natural calamities happen. What is the role of God in such natural calamities? And the second part is about what really is service in such situations. So coming to the first part, Bhagwan said, you know why the earthquake happens? And he lifted his left hand like this and placed it in front of him and said, see, Mother Earth is always in perfect balance. But human desires are endless. Because human desires are endless, they continuously exploit Mother Nature. And he showed literally like this. He said, as you're exploiting, you're tilting the balance in nature in this manner. You know what? Nature is our mother. So she has great forbearance and great love for her children, which is all of us. So she doesn't say anything and bears all this torment to the extent that she can. But a time comes when it crosses the threshold of her forbearance, and having no choice, she simply shouts with pain and says, this is how Bhagwan did and showed. And he said, when she does this, this is the earthquake and the tsunamis that you see. And that causes large-scale destructions on earth. Nature by herself never causes destruction. She only knows how to heal herself and continue the cycle of birth and death so that fresh life emerges and old life submerges. This is a natural cycle, but nature by herself does not cause destruction. It is the mind and the desire of man, the selfishness of man, that has led to imbalance in nature. And beyond, when it goes beyond her forbearance, she simply, has to jerk to come back to normality because she has no other choice. And out of great fear and great harm for humanity that is caused by this, Mother Nature sheds tears. And such is the love of Mother Nature. And Bhagavan says, God does not cause any natural calamities. It is in fact the actions of man and the mind of man that is responsible for the natural calamities. This was the first part where Swami explained that God does not cause any natural calamities. It is in fact the acts of humans that causes imbalance in nature, and the mind of man that is in the subtle realm, which is reflected in the gross, which we see as various diseases, disappointments, difficulties, and disasters. The second part of it was when one of the elders seated next to Swami, they prayed to Swami and said, Swami, but in the face of such a calamity, you have sent 50 truckloads of relief material. What a great service you have done. Bhagavan asked that professor, that elderly devotee, a question. Do you have children at home? They said, yes, Swami, we have children at home. So when they fall down and they get injured, what do you do? The professor said, Swami, I rush to them and I pick them up, I dust them, I give whatever first aid is necessary, and I cajole them, I comfort them. Swami then asked very softly but firmly this question, is it a great service that you're doing to your children? That is when the professor was dumbstruck, and Bhagavan said, this entire cosmos, all the beings are my children. I never ever entertain a single thought of harm for them. My duty is not to create natural calamities, but when by their own mistakes, when such calamities happen and they suffer, my heart rushes to them to serve them, to save them, to cajole them, to comfort them. That is the role that I play as God, Bhagavan said. That is the role that God plays. God is not the cause of calamities. He comes to comfort our hearts, to correct our path, so that we do not commit these mistakes again and again. I am not saying that coronavirus here is a natural calamity. There are various reasons, and we will not go into those reasons at the moment. But what is for sure is it is a definite flaw of human action and human mind, as Swami pointed out. And unless we correct our behavior, correct our manners, the issue is human being often thinks, Swami would often remind us about this and say, the issue is human being thinks that he is an isolated being. Though we are all asked to stay in isolation now, human being thinks he is an isolated being, but he is actually an integral part of the entire nature. Every thought that emerges in a human mind has its repercussions, its reflections in the entire cosmos, in the universe. Because there is subtle energy that is a foundation, the basis for the gross creation that we see. So the thoughts we have are very, very important. And that is where I come to the next point, which is the kind of thoughts we entertain is critical. The context of this seminar, this webinar, is purity is enlightenment. That is the larger context. Why fear when I am here is the immediate context. So referring to the larger context, which is purity is enlightenment, Bhagavan says that purity of thoughts and feelings is what purifies the nature outside. In fact, on one occasion, I think I mentioned this in the previous webinar as well, Bhagavan emphatically prophesied, nay, declared that a time will come when my students, who are Swami students, all those who follow Swami's teachings are Swami students. Swami said, a time will come when my students, they will go out into the world and clean up the pollution there. In Hindi, Bhagavan said this, I will use his very words because there is potency in the words uttered by the avatar, and then I will translate this again. Swami said, Bahar bahut pollution hai. Outside there is a lot of pollution. Andar bhi or bahar bhi. Within the mind and hearts of men and women, and which is reflected in the nature, andar bhi or bahar bhi. हमारा स्टूडेंट्स बाहर जाके वो पोल्यूशन क्लीन करेगा. My students will go out into this world and clean up this pollution. वही उनका स्वामी के लिए सेवा है. That is the service that they will do to Swami. And Bhagwan emphasized here and said, the outer pollution can only be cleaned when the inner pollution is clean. And hence, our thoughts are very, very important. Swami would often tell us, watch. Watch means watch your words, action, thoughts, character, and heart. In WATCH, the fulcrum or the middle, right in the middle, is the letter T, which is thoughts. Thoughts are the basis for words, thoughts are the basis for action, thoughts and actions are basis for character and the kind of compassionate heart that we develop. So thoughts are very, very important, and Bhagwan says that we have to pay careful attention to thoughts. A bundle of thoughts or bundle of desires, which are nothing but thoughts that remain long enough in our mind, is called manas or mind itself. A bundle of thoughts is what is called as mind. Now here is a beautiful story where Bhagwan described to us how to tune this mind so that we can have elevated thoughts, and that elevated thoughts by itself will ensure purity around us. And when that kind of purity exists around us, no impurity in form of a virus or any other impurity can even touch us or come close to us. What is this purity that we have to develop? This happened in the year 1999, the month of August, and the students who had joined newly for the management course in Swami's University were all seated in the Sai Kulwant Hall, and they were praying to Swami for an interview. They said, Swami, interview Swami, please interview Swami. Swami very casually said in the Hindi language, wife leke aao, interview deta hai. Said, bring your wife along, I will give you interview. Of course, it is known that all the students of Swami are unmarried. So obviously they don't have wives. But Swami said, wife leke aao, interview deta hai. Bring your wife along, I'll give you interview. So the students assumed that Swami is cracking a joke with them, and they continued to plead with Swami and said, Swami, please, Swami, interview Swami. Swami walked a few paces and then said, yes, please Swami. That is, first you please Swami. That is how your spiritual account balance will increase, and then the grace will automatically flow. So do your sadhana, that is essential to increase your spiritual account balance. Then you can put the check of prayer and receive grace for your protection. So please Swami, Swami reiterated that. The boys, of course, did not stop there, and with their earnest prayers, they continued. They said, please Swami, interview Swami. Swami walked a few paces next to the lion, the brass lion that is there towards the interview room in Prashantinilayam. Swami was holding the ear of that lion and standing, and then he looked back at the boys and said, hey boys, Swami kya kaha, samajh mein aaya? Did you understand what Swami told you? Swami said, your mind is your wife. The Atma or Swami's divine presence in you is the husband. The mind has to be in perfect tune and coordination with the Atma or Swami's our inner presence of divinity, which is Swami himself. When the mind is in perfect tune with the heart, our Atma or Swami in our hearts, then there will be perfect peace and harmony in this home called body. But if the mind is running in one direction and the Atma is giving a different direction, Swami punned with the word and said the result will be diverse. That is, they will go in different directions completely. And this will lead to disharmony and unrest in this body, and the reflection of this microcosm will be seen in the macrocosm, which is the entire universe. So the harmony between the mind and the inner divine presence is essential to bring peace and harmony in the individual being, which will be reflected in the universal being, which is the world that we see around us. The mind is the wife, the Atma is the husband, and they have to meet each other, is what Swami said. They have to be in perfect understanding and harmony. So, where the thoughts must be directed? The thoughts must be directed towards the Swami in our heart, who is our inner presence. That is where we will derive strength to face any number of calamities. Swami would often tell this to us personally when we students would be called for Trayi sessions in Vrindavan or even Purna Chandra sessions in Prashantinilayam. Swami would often narrate the story of the Pandavas and say that they were struck by calamity after calamity, natural calamities, personal calamities, whatnot. But because their mind was ever in tune with Krishna consciousness, whatever may be the difficulties, Krishna would manifest his grace immediately for them. Many a times he would himself physically manifest wherever they were, in the depths of the forest or on the top of the mountains. Such is the grace of God. When a mind is completely surrendered to the grace of God, then he himself takes complete responsibility of your welfare. That is why Bhagavan often says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyo yuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham, which means the one whose mind is incessantly in my thoughts, is surrendered to me completely, their yoga and shema, their complete welfare, physical, health-wise, emotional, financial, and spiritual welfare is my responsibility. This is a promise given by Lord Krishna when Swami came in that form, and he reiterates the promise that he gave more than 5,000 years ago, again today to all of us. Ananyas chintayanto mam. The mind must be placed in constant contemplation of God, and that by itself manifests grace on us. Now we come to this juncture where we have to practically understand how to fix our mind in constant contemplation and union with Swami. This kind of constant contemplation automatically showers grace on us and protects us from every kind of calamity. But how do we do this is the question. What is the way that Swami is present in each one of us is something that we need to explore. So there are 3 exercises, time permitting. We will do practical exercises now so that we can experience Bhagavan's presence in each one of us. The first and the very simple exercise that Swami says is, I am the very life force in you. Why fear when I am here? I am the very life force in you. Why fear when I am here? Right? So the life force in us is understood by us in the form of our breathing process. Right? We claim to be alive as long as we are breathing. And what happens when the body is put to horizontal permanent rest? The breathing process has completely stopped. It is not merely oxygen that is the life force, but the divine energy that gives a spiritual consciousness awakening to the worldly material gases of oxygen, that is called as the life force. The divine presence in us is what really is the life force that enriches our breath, which is said to be in the point of Kutastha, the place where the breath switches, which is right here between the brows. So a simple exercise that Bhagavan tells us to become aware of his presence immediately, here and now. He says, why fear when I am here? He is here and now. So there is this interesting story that happened in interview room. Swami asked one of the students, I keep hearing all of you tell in talks, be here and now. That is the only spiritual sadhana you need to do. Be here and now, be here and now. I also hear there are many books written on here and now. What is here and now? Swami asked this question, what is here and now? When the student was again dumbfounded by this question, Swami himself explained. He said, see, your body is here. Your body is here. Wherever you are, the body is here right now. Right? Body is here. Now the mind may not be here. While the body is here, you may be thinking about, oh, what do I have for dinner? Or was the dinner tasty today? If you have already had dinner today, that is, you must be wondering, was the dinner tasty? Or how are my relatives somewhere else in the world? How are they doing? Are they safe now? So various kinds of thoughts are coming. Your body is here right now, wherever you are, but your mind, is it here? So Swami says, if your mind is where your body is, that is called now. Here and now means your body is here. If your mind is where your body is, it is called now. This here and now verily is the divine presence in one of its manifestations. Why fear when I am here, Bhagavan says. And that can be experienced in a very simple way by paying attention to the life force that Bhagavan is in each one of us. He is inseparable from us in the form of the life force, and he is there in every breath. So we will do this simple practice along with his divine name. Bhagavan says you can do this practice by closing your eyes if you wish to, and in your mind's eye, that is between the eyebrows, have Swami's form as a fixed image. I request all the participants here to do this. Please sit straight. It's very important to sit straight. Swami once came and told us, I request you to open your eyes if you have closed them, just for a moment. Once in Sai Kulwant Hall, Swami came and spoke to all of us and said this. And we were all seated for Swami's darshan, and after a while, all of us were seated straight. We became tired and we started bending like this. And then Swami looked at all of us and said, hey, if all of you sit like this at this age, as you grow older, you will become like this. What is this? He said, a question mark. Then at the end of your life, you will wonder, oh God, what did I do with my life? Right? So you must always sit with your back straight. It ensures good health, it ensures great concentration, and it ensures that whatever work you do will be successful because of 100% attention that will be physiologically and energetically facilitated for each one of us. So the spinal cord from the base to the top has to be kept straight, right? And Bhagavan said, if you keep it straight, then your life won't be a question mark, it will be a exclamation mark. Wow, what a wonderful life I had. See? So let's all sit straight. And I request you to please close your eyes and visualize Swami's form from his feet to his head, the full form of Swami between your eyebrows. And as your inward breath comes in, we say Sai. And as the outward breath goes out, we say Ram. Breathe in, Sai. Breathe out, Ram. Breathe in, Sai. Breathe out, Ram. You don't have to chant this, it's just a mental exercise. Breathe in, Sai. Breathe out, Ram. 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 Continue this exercise on your own. You may now open your eyes. So Bhagavan is present in each and every one of us as our life force, which is inseparable from us. And hence he says, why fear when I am here? We now move to the second exercise, a very beautiful exercise, which Swami himself gave. And Swami termed it as Bhava Dhyana. That is, meditation using your innermost love that you have for Bhagavan. This Bhava Dhyana is the second way to know how Swami is present with us. For this exercise, I now request all of you to please be seated straight, comfortably. Bhagavan gave this exercise in his discourse. He's also given this to students in private interviews and sessions. Swami said that the greatest good fortune that all of us have is we have seen the avatar with our own eyes. That is the greatest protection that we have. So every time we visualize his presence in us, our mind assumes the form of Swami himself in his original form. Swami would often go on to say that whether be it Rama or Krishna or Jesus, anybody for that matter, Zoroastra, it is only through paintings and images that we know how they looked like. But the greatest good fortune of devotees today is they have seen God in physical manifestation with their own eyes. And even greater good fortunes for coming generation is Swami has allowed himself to be photographed, and that is available to all of us, even for the new generations, to visualize Swami as he took the incarnation, the divine incarnation, which Mata Anandamahima said, such an avatar never before has walked on this earth, never again will he walk in this manner for another 5,000 years. Such is the glory of Satya Sai avatar. And to merely visualize him, our mind itself becomes Swami's form. When we visualize his form, and that is the greatest sense of blessings and grace and protection for a devotee. And how is this form created? It is created by the loving imagination of a devotee. The power of love of the devotee is the only power that can sketch the form of the Lord in the mind and make the mind assume the form of the divine love incarnation, which is Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba himself. So we shall follow this simple meditation exercise. Swami said, I have assumed this form in such simplicity so that you can contemplate on me from the top of my head to the tip of my toe with utter ease. So Swami went on to describe this meditation, which we will all practice now. This is a guided meditation. I request all of you to please be seated comfortably, sit straight, close your eyes, and as this guided meditation goes on, you could sketch the form of Swami. Before that, I would like to add, for the convenience of a few here, if you prefer to see Swami's photograph in order to visualize him, please do so now itself. I request you to please use a photo of Swami where you have his form from the top to toe in whatever way it is available in front of you, and carefully pay attention to every strand of hair in his crown of hair, his broad forehead, his beautiful eyes, his beautiful nose, his extremely loving lips, his beautiful chin, his neck, his long robe and his beautiful flowing body, his soft, sweet, grace-filled hands, and his divine lotus feet. All of this, pay careful attention. You can look at a photograph of Swami and pay careful attention to details, to every minutest part of the divine form, including the robe, the golden buttons, and the way that his robe is. I would request all of you to take 30 seconds or a minute and look at a photograph of Swami in front of you, if you have so, and pay careful attention to this divine form. It is a very powerful exercise that we are going to do, which has been given by Bhagwan himself to his devotees. You may now concentrate on Swami's form that is in front of you in the form of a photograph. Please pay attention to all the details. We will now commence the guided meditation. With all the love that you have for Swami, sketch his form from the top of his head. Begin with the beautiful crown of hair. Sketch the minutest curls of his hair in your mind. Beautiful black crown of hair that Swami has. Look at the curls that run hither and thither, each separate from the other because they are so filled with divine energy. Sketch them with all your heart. Now come down to his broad foreheads. You can see the color of his skin, the texture of his skin. So beautiful. He has a broad forehead, and beautifully housed on them are wonderful eyebrows of Bhagavan. You can see his eyebrows meet, and where they meet and where his nose begins, you can see a beautiful line. Meditate on that line, sketch that line. The line that separates Swami's nose from his forehead. Bhagwan, describing this line, said to the students, "This has been a special part of my physical appearance, so that you can pay attention to it. Sundaram is his form. Pay attention to the line that separates his forehead from his beautiful nose. Now come down to his nose. Beautiful broad nose of Bhagwan. Wonderful nostrils that he has. On either side of his nose, look into his eyes. His eyes filled with immense love and compassion. Look into his eyes. Come down to his cheeks. Come down to his lips. His beautiful soft lips, always in what is called as mandahasa, a sweet smile, a benign smile that melts our heart. Come down to his cheek, his chin. Now sketch his beautiful neck. And as we go down, see his orange robe. You can see the golden buttons on his robe, and the robe slides down from his shoulders on either side, those wonderful, robust shoulders of the Lord, and come down. Visualize his robe in orange, all the way down. And on the sides, you see his hands, soft, sweet hands of Bhagavan. His beautifully clipped nails, his hands always in wonderful mudras, in gestures of grace. Come down the robe, see his hips and his knees, all the way down straight to the end of the robe, where there is a slight slit in the robe to reveal the dhoti vastra, the garment that Swami wears within. Come down further and see the beautiful lotus feet of Bhagavan, the lotus feet that grants liberation to us. Pay careful attention to the nerves on his feet. Pay careful attention to the softness in his feet. Look at his toes. Look at how there is a clear separation, a U formation between his first and second toes. Pay attention to his divine lotus feet. Now move your attention back again, sketching his form from his lotus feet to his dhoti, to his robe, all the way up. See his hands making those wonderful gestures all the way up to his chest. See the golden button on Swami's robes, his broad shoulders, his wonderful neck, his beautiful chin, his cheeks, his lips in wonderful smile, mandahasa, his nose. Go up and look into his eyes again, filled with love and compassion for all of us. Be there for a moment, look into his eyes. Move upwards to his eyebrows, the broad forehead above them. See the beautiful crown of hair as it sways in the breeze. See his beautiful crown of hair. That presents the halo of the divinity of love that we behold as our beloved. Be immersed in this form. Our minds have now taken the form of Sai itself. Why fear when I am here, says Bhagavan. I'm now open to any questions. The questions can be raised in the chat box.
Saram, brother Sai Kirita, while we wait for any questions to come up, I thought I'll just raise one question. When we can accept everything as His will, what is happening, which is something that you referred to initially, what can we do on a day-to-day life in some simple steps that we can do, which helps us not intellectualize, but actually practically see Bhagwan in everything that happens around us?
Thank you so much for this question, brother. So, I would like to take refuge in something that Swami himself told us in the year 2007 when we were there with him in Chennai. And in fact, this was a question that one of the students asked Swami, Swami, how do we actually surrender to you completely? We know that everything happens by your will, but how do we actually surrender? What is this surrender really? Swami said, I would use the exact words which Swami said in Tamil on that occasion and then, translate this for all of us. Swami said, Sharanagatila kudukarthukku onnum illai, which means there is nothing that you can offer to God on a daily basis in the form of surrender. நல்லது நடந்தாலும் கெட்டது நடந்தாலும் எல்லாம் அவர்தான் கொடுக்கிறார்னு திருட நம்பிக்கை வச்சுக்கோ, அதுதான் சரணாகதி. Which means whether good is happening around you or bad is happening around you, what we perceive as bad is happening around us, have firm faith and conviction that it is Swami who is giving it to us. If you simply have this firm faith and conviction, that is surrender. So on a daily basis, the tip or the guidance, divine guidance that Swami has given us is have firm faith and conviction to begin with, that whatever is happening is good for us. It is Swami's gift to us. Suppose Swami gifts us something. He gives you a present. Whether the present may be of use to you or not, materially speaking, we will have the feeling that this was given by Bhagwan himself and keep it very sacred to us, isn't it? But what happens is in life, when gifts come to us in the form of life incidents, knowing very well that it is Swami's script for us, we often forget this fact. So Swami's guidance here is very simple and straightforward. Have firm conviction and an intention which is unwavering in our mind that whether good happens to us or bad happens to us, it is His gift to us. If we are able to develop this attitude on a day-to-day basis and then look at events from that perspective, automatically surrender happens. This itself is surrender according to Swami. And when surrender happens, the complete responsibility of our security and welfare is His. Now, what happens is we often think about this but don't actually practice it. When we only think and not practice, there is fear. Why? Because when surrender happens, there is nothing to fear. Just imagine a small baby that is lying down on the lap of his or her mother. Will there be any fear in that baby's mind? The baby will be, kicking away its hands and feet in great joy and happiness. Why? Because the baby is surrendered on the lap of his or her mother. In the same way, when we actually surrender through our intention and will to God and actually practice this in our life, there is no scope for fear. Why? Because once surrender happens, safety and security is automatic response from the Mother Divine. And hence, there is no scope for fear. If there is fear, then the intention or the conviction is somewhere diluted or lacking. That is the reason. So this is what I would like to share as one tip, because we are all sitting in the isolation of our home. What the most powerful instrument we all have right now is our mind. So we must use our mind to develop this intention and firm conviction. So this is one thing that I would like to say. But this firm conviction is only strengthened by regular sadhana. 2 such sadhanas we have already practiced today. There are many more simple sadhanas which Swami has given us, like Jyoti meditation. There is another sadhana which we may come to. But performing our daily sadhanas sincerely will reaffirm this conviction and faith in Bhagwan. See, faith is experienced when there is direct experience of divine presence in us. And that direct experience comes through sadhana. So faith creates a demand for sadhana, and performance of sadhana reinforces faith. So these two are essential complementary things to each other. So they need to supplement each other. Practical question. So how do we counsel frontline healthcare workers who are frightened looking after sick patients with COVID-19? These workers may not believe in higher powers, right? See, this is the beauty of Bhagwan's teachings. The higher power is not separate from each of us. We must understand that. That is why Swami said, I am present as your life force, and hence if you simply focus on your breath, you are with me, and why fear when I am here? I am present in the form of your mind. So when you make your mind itself into a divine form of Swami, why fear when I am here? So for these COVID workers, I think something that they can easily follow is paying attention to their breath. If they are not very comfortable with that, Jyoti Dhyan, that is meditation on the light, is a simple practice because it does not involve any spiritual understanding. It does not involve any religious context. It simply awakens their inner divinity to flourish through all their sense organs. So Jyoti Dhyan is a very powerful technique which Swami has given. If we are able to teach these health workers Jyoti Dhyan, that is an excellent tool. The other tool I would say is simple focus on their breathing. They need not do it with any namasmarana. Even if they simply focus on their breath from time to time, if they just take 12 seconds off or a minute off and focus on their breath, they will come in the present moment. In the present moment, the mind cannot be turbulent. It's as simple as that. See, the mind can get turbulent only when it's running into the past out of what has happened in the past, or it is speculating out of fear of what's going to happen in the future. Both are not in the present moment. Mind can be turbulent only in the past and in the future. Both are imaginations of the mind. Moment the mind is brought here and now, this is the most practical thing to do. Moment the mind is brought here and now, mind ceases to be turbulent because body is here and body has a particular role to do and it is engaged in that. Mind is also engaged in that. Mind will not be turbulent, right? So breathing, focusing their attention on their breath, which is Soham. You need not tell them Soham also. It happens on its own. They can pay attention to that. Or Jyoti meditation is an excellent tool by which their own willpower, their own inner divinity will flow through all their sense organs and they don't have to worry about anything. They will not feel turbulent. It automatically calms their mind. And Swami says the reason we use light or Jyoti is it is universal. It is applicable to people of all faith. It is applicable even to somebody who claims that they don't belong to any faith. Light is such, right? So Swami himself mentions this. So Jyoti Dhyan is something that we can.
Just to conclude this session, let me first start by thanking Brother Sai Giridhar again for such a wonderful, motivating, and it was definitely a very moving session with some very interesting and important practical tips for us in this current circumstances. I pray to Bhagwan to bless him abundantly to be an able messenger in his mission as he has been. I hope we will have more such opportunities, Brother Sai Giridhar, to listen to you in the future. Stay safe and Jai Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram. Thank you everybody for your loving divine presence here.